Give a portion to 7 or even 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. He who observes, as you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning, sow your seed, and at the evening, withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. Light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eye to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body. For youth and the dawn of life are vanity. The word of our Lord.
Hey, be seated. Lights are up. There you go. Thank you. Just want to get there before you cook my corneas before I got to the chair. Thank you. All right. Weird. Right? You're reading along, you're like, huh? Got to understand, Hebrew is a beautiful language. It conveys a lot of meaning. However, at times, it just doesn't carry over in English. So what do I mean by that? Well, there are things about the Hebrew language that are difficult to translate, difficult to bring over, kind of more what we call Hebraisms. And it's not that we can't define the meaning. It's that when you're translating, you want to make sure you say what the text has said and then explain to the audience. So the original audience would read this and they would know what's being talked about. We read this and go, that's a thinker. We'll get to that. We'll talk about this. Let's start off with the beginning here. Is Ecclesiastes chapter 11, starting with verse 1. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or to 8, or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen upon the earth. The clouds are full of rain. They empty themselves upon the earth. If a tree falls to the north or south, is a husband still wrong? No, I'm kidding. It's not in there. To the place where the tree falls, there will lie. He who observes wind will not sow. He who regards clouds will not reap. What in the world is he talking about here? Well, first of all, he's not talking about throwing bread in the water, and then when it comes back after several days, you ingest it. Not what he's saying. That has no palatable way of having understanding, does it? Think about it. I'm going to throw bread in the water, and in a couple of days it's going to come back. Well, one way to look at it is, well, I throw bread in the water, and then hopefully ducks will come along and I get to shoot them. No. The concept here, bread is typically used in the Hebraism here for commerce, for wheat, for grain. He's talking about planting and sowing and reaping here. And so one of the more common things that are sent around the Mediterranean is grain. Why? Because grain is a basic sustenance. He's not talking about taking it and throwing it on the water and go, maybe I'll get a bunch of stuff growing on the river. Nope. He's talking, it's a commerce language. Put your bread in the boat, and let it go down on the waters into the world of commerce, and in a few days or in a few weeks or in a few months, that will return to you the value of the grain that you sold. It's talking about investing. And a lot of times we look at this and we try to force this overly woodenly. You can't with wisdom literature. There's one reason why we get in trouble when we go over and start reading Daniel and many of the minor prophets and try to read eschatology in on that. You can, but it's figurative. Do that with the book of Revelation. You can, but it's figurative. You got to read it in the figurative nature that it's in and pull the truth from that. I'll give you a great example. If I say it is raining cats and dogs, do I mean that when we go out there, we'll see dogs and cats that have plowed into the asphalt out there and are not laying out there like that? That's not what I meant. What did I say in English? It's pouring buckets. Does that mean that there's somebody over there that's just dropping Lowe's buckets from the sky all over the parking lot? What did I say in English? It's raining very hard. It's a figure of speech that we understand. When I was in Bible college, there were two girls there. One was from Croatia and one was from Slovenia, and I was trying to go out with both of them, but it just wouldn't happen. And I came in and said both those statements to them, and they had the most bewildered look on their face. Because one thought there were cats and dogs in the parking lot, and somebody was dropping buckets from the sky. This is a conversation about commerce. And it's talking to the fact that here's the thing about investing in things. When you invest in things, there's a risk. If you put your grain upon the boat, what could happen to the boat? It could sink. What else could happen? Well, that'd be sinking. That would be sinking. If it overturns, if it fills with water, if it sinks, those are all sinking. The Titanic went to the bottom because it was filled with water, it overturned, and it sank. What could happen on a boat? What do you have on a boat when you're near water that doesn't involve overturning, filling, or sinking? Starts with an M. Yeah, mold. Once your grain turns moldy, can you eat it? No, unless you like penicillin right in the right? No. What else are on boats that, especially if you're carrying agricultural goods, do they usually come on there pest-free? So what else could you have in the boat? Rats! Congratulations, Peanut Gallery. Thank you. I think that's what I'm going to call you three, is the Peanut Gallery. I say it with love. Anyhow, what else could you have upon the boat? If I got rats, and if I have rats, I have rats leaving stuff. I have feces in the grain. Okay, well, let's say what else could I have if I have a lot of agricultural things on there? What usually is on agricultural products? Pre-pesticide. Bugs. Will they invade the wheat? Weevils, maggots, grubs, possums? No. Thank you for playing, though. Appreciate it. Seen and not heard. So anyhow. A lot of things can happen to the grain upon the boat. And what happens is, if a lot of things can happen to the grains upon the boat, one of the inclinations is, well, I just won't send my grain out. But if I don't send my grain out, what can I not have? Many days later, if you find it after many days, I don't have the returned income from the grain because I'm too afraid to send it out. We live our lives this way a lot of times. Yeah, how do I know? Because is there a parable? Quite possibly. Is there a parable this might correspond to in that book we call the New Testament? Nope. Parable of the talents. Parable of the talents, he gives 10, 4, or so 10, was it 5, 10, 5, 2, and 1. And the one guy takes it and he puts the 5, he invests it. Now, when you invest, is there a chance of you losing your investment? 100% of the time. Not that you will lose 100% of the time, but 100% of the times the risk is there for you to lose. Play the stock market. Anyhow, don't do that. It's horrible advice. Anyhow. The guy with 5 invests, he gets 10. The guy with 2, he invests and gets 4. The guy with 1, he doesn't invest. And he uses the language that a lot of people use, they just don't realize it. Look, I knew that you were a man that reaped where you did not sow, that you did things to you're strong at battle, all these things. So I was afraid and I didn't invest. So here's your 1 talent back. And his response was, it was better if you lost it than hold on to it. Why? You're scared. Cast your bread upon the waters, and in many days it'll come back to you. He's encouraging individuals to be about activities of the day, primarily if we're going to roll this into the church activities. Why? Because here's the thing. Talking to people about Jesus is a scary thing. There could be some risks there, right? What's the biggest risk that could happen? I want you to think about it. What is the biggest risk that could happen when sharing the gospel? They could say no. Now, they could punch you in the face. We have gotten to that tier now. I watched several videos of abolitionists talking about abortion, and people get really upset. Truth usually has a way of making people angry. So it could be possible that someone punched you. Probably very, very, very small chance of that. But the biggest fear is saying no. What is the advantage to the church if we resist the saying no and share the gospel? People come to the church. People get saved. But here's the thing is, that's a byproduct. The advantage to the church is that we have brought another soul into the kingdom and another soul to understand the walk with the holy God. See, we think it's about getting people onto the pew when really it's about getting people into heaven and having a relationship with Jesus Christ. The byproduct is them being on the pew and being here and then being part of the fellowship. We invert those two and think, oh, it's about getting them to the pew. That's why if I just ask them, they'll come to church. Great, for a little bit, and then they'll leave. Why? Because they don't cement that coming to church with the relationship with Christ. There is no reward, and that's kind of the point that if we want to pull this forward to our day and age, if you do not put your grain upon the water, you will not get the return. If you do not share the gospel with people, you will not get its return. And here's the thing is, I think lifestyle evangelism is a strong way to go. Some of us have been lifestyling so long that the people around us don't know that it's just lifestyle evangelism. Lifestyle evangelism without asking someone, hey, if you were to die in this moment, where would you spend eternity? And here's the thing is, are you sure? That's the question I'm going to ask back. So here's the thing is, we're kind of afraid of that. Now notice what it says. Give a portion 7 or 8 or even 8, for you know not what disaster might happen upon the earth. He's talking about diversification. If you put all of your eggs in one basket, what happened? Matter of fact, there's a thing that says, don't what? Put all your eggs in one basket. It's like investing all your money at the track. I'm going to take, I got this brilliant plan, Stephanie. I'm going to take all of my money out and I'm going to buy lotto tickets. I don't know how much they cost, but I'm sure to get thousands of tickets. One of them's got to hit. Is that diversification? No, absolutely not. It's a great way to be poor. And there's some people that think that way. Diversification is I got money over here in oil, I got money over here in in metals, I got some in grains, I got some in the stock market, I got some in bonds. We diversify. Well, now, why do you diversify your investments? Because if one goes belly up, it hasn't tanked you. When I was a machinist, at the time I worked, DOD, which is the military, and oil were big business. And one year, DOD and oil went belly up. I swept the floor of that machine shop every day for a year. When I wasn't sweeping the floor, I was cleaning the machines again. When I wasn't cleaning the machines again, I was painting the machines. And when I wasn't painting the machines, we painted the walls new. And then I went back to sweeping the floor and cleaning the machines and mowing the grass and moving fence, because it was better for my boss to keep us on than to retrain new people. But he took it on the chin because he was deeply invested in DOD and oil. And from that moment on, we weren't. So you don't put everything in one basket. So he's talking about investing, and he's not simply talking about the investment for your money. You're going to see later on, he's going to talk about the consequences of your actions before a holy God. And so your actions have to have consequences that you're aware of and where they fit in the economy of God. And a lot of times what we do is we come to church and we assume that all the business of the church is somebody else's job. And usually when you say somebody else, who do you mean? It's the pastor's job. I can sit upon the pew. I don't need to share the gospel. That's the pastor's job. And we'll help you out. Ephesians chapter 4 says it's your job. And says it is not mine. How do I know you don't read your Bible? Because if you read Ephesians chapter 4, you'd know that. And some of you are like, I can see you. I don't have my glasses on, but I can see the wiggles. Ephesians chapter 4 puts that in your lane. Does that mean that I'm exempt from it? Absolutely not. But it means it's not my primary task. And what happens to churches where the people assume that the leadership is this way, and instead of embracing their role, they're putting all their eggs on one basket. And they're expecting a return. That's what it says here. If the clouds are full of rain and they empty themselves upon the earth, if a tree falls to the south or north in its place, there's where the tree falls and lies. What is he talking about? Again, he's talking about investment. He's going to sum it up here a little bit better. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not weep. If you're waiting for the right time, you'll never find the right time. Before I asked Stephanie out, I was waiting for the right time. And I always seem to find a reason for it to not to be the right time. And had a major event not happen, I wouldn't have asked her out. I'll tell you why I asked her out. I was driving up to go to Dallas to so and talk to her again because I like talking to her. And my trick was I'd find an obscure title because she would do the obscure title lookups. And I'd find an obscure title, and I knew she would have a hard time finding this one because I did. So I would go in and I'd ask her, and we'd have about 30 minutes to an hour. She's looking for this obscure title. I have 50 books in my library I've not read. That's dedication. So I'm on my way there, and I make a turn, and the gas station has washed all of its oil and grease onto the road and the way on which I'm driving. And my truck does a 360 and then down an embankment in Dallas and on to 175. And I am now in this way with traffic coming this way and an 18-wheeler coming right at me about where the drums kit is. And I yank my steering wheel and get the truck off the road. And I go, well, if I haven't died there, I can't die the rest of the day. So I'm going to go ask her out. You didn't know that, did you? Oh, did I tell you that? So I told her that. See, I've forgotten. Anyhow, a lot of times, if we're looking for the perfect moment, you're not going to find the perfect moment. The farmer doesn't wait till he goes, well, Might rain next week. I don't want my seeds to wash away. He plants. And he doesn't plant haphazardly, right? Do we plant wheat in the fall? Typically not. Maybe, I think barley you can do in the fall. I think oats you can do in the fall. There's certain grains you can do in the winter. They're called winter wheats. Okay, that's great. If Eric Mitchell was here, he'd probably be telling me which ones you could do for beer. Well, I don't care. Eric's not here right now. So, yeah. But typically, there's a time in which you plant. But if you wait for ideal conditions, and here's the thing in Texas, if you wait for ideal conditions in Texas, you're going to have 80 degrees on Saturday and barely 60 degrees on a Sunday. Just go do it. If you're waiting for the ideal, so let's roll this back over into evangelism. If you're waiting for the right moment to share the gospel with somebody, you need to understand at every moment is the right moment for that person. You know why? Because you do not know the days in the book of life that that person has numbered. Nor do you know the days you have numbered. Well, I'm a healthy man. Yeah. I've seen healthy men die. I've seen unhealthy people. My grandmother's 8, whatever. She lived to be like 98. I've seen unhealthy people live a lifetime. I've seen people that have never smoked a cigarette the day of their life die in their 40s. I don't eat bacon. I'm a cholesterol, blah, 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 blah. I looked at my doctor this week. I said, those are just numbers on a page, doc. Is this mic on? Those are just numbers on a page, doc. I've seen people live really, really good health lifestyles and still die. Why? Because their time on earth is assigned to them not by how well they eat, but by a holy. Now that doesn't mean, folks, hear me out. Does not mean eat all the pork you want and then get on the highway and pick up pennies. That's fatalism. But God has named and formed us and determined our lifespan, and we should live as though every day, every moment is the last time we have upon the earth. And our goal in life, if that mindset, isn't solely the amassing of wealth, though investment is good. He's not telling you investment's bad, but investment in the kingdom is far greater. Why? Because it has the greater return. And if you're looking for the right moment, there will never be one. There will never be one. We don't understand. People may say no and then never talk to me again. They may. How will you know? Well, I'd rather be safe than sorry. Okay. You've now chosen not to plant. You're the guy with one talent that put it in the ground. Let's look on. Let's move ahead. Let's take a look at what's going on. As you do not know the way in which the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with a child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. Curious statement. In the morning, sow your seed. In the evening, at evening, withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. He's still using agrarian language to talk about how we live our lives. Grain going on a boat. Well, in order if you have grain going on a boat, you have to have what in a field? But yeah, I wasn't asking a trick question there. If I'm putting grain on a boat, where did I get the grain from? I didn't go to Costco. It was in the field. So then he looks at this. He says, there's an alternate reading for this section. Some of you might have. You do not know the path of the wind. And a lot of that has to do with the word ruach. That's how you pronounce it. You got to say it like you've got a phlegm in the back of your throat. The word ruach can mean breath, can mean wind, can mean spirit. Typically, when it's used in spirit, typically it's of the Holy Spirit. It in the word, the Greek equivalent is pneuma. And so the question becomes, how is this translated? Is he talking about wind and a path in which it travels? Or is he talking about wind that comes upon an individual or the bones of the individual? So let's take a look at it and translate it a couple different ways. As you do not know the way in which they use the Spirit here, comes upon the bones of a woman with child, so you do not know the works of God who makes everything. And the point is if you don't know how babies get there, and you got to think at this time and age, do they understand all the biomechanics involved in making a child? Do they go, well, of course, it's still a human, but it's a zygote human. It's a human in the zygotic stage. It's a human in the embryonic stage. We're waiting for gestation. None of those words existed when this was written. They understand how babies are made, but they don't understand how babies are made. And so what happens is, and even still to this day, childbirth is one of the greatest miracles involved in life. And so the question then is, if you don't understand when the child breathes, by the way, there's a lot of folks that would go that Jews don't believe that the baby in the womb is alive until it breathes. That's a 4th century AD belief. That is not a BC belief. How do we know? Because he's talking about the child breathing in the womb as the bones are being made. Let me help you out also. In the child's in the womb, guess what it's doing? It's breathing. It's breathing amniotic fluid. Science is your friend. If you do not know the way in which the Spirit comes to the bones in the woman with child, indicating that what makes the child is that the child is not simply bones. Something unique that goes on. If you don't understand that, you really are not going to understand the works of God who makes everything. That sounds really familiar to another book in the Bible. I wonder which one it is. Probably if you thought the book of Job, you're very good, because when Job says, I will ask God and he will answer me, the Lord responds, go, oh really? Hold my beverage. Job, I will address you and you will address me and you will answer me like a man. Job, do you know when the donkey folds? Do you know where the mountain goat resides? Can you draw Leviathan from the ocean with a hook? Job's answer is, I do not. And Job, you won't understand the situation you're in. If you don't understand some of the basic things that go on, and even in our day-to-day, we have a good idea of what's going on biologically. But we don't know what's going on in the realm of God within the child, within the spirit of the child, and so while he's using that analogy, if you don't have that grasp of concept in great detail, you're going to struggle with the plans of God. Now, he's not saying don't trust the plans of God. But what he's saying is your ability to understand God's direction for you is not determined on whether or not you can see all the plan. Just like when you invest your grain, you may not see all the hands your grain goes through. What you want to see is the return. Just like when you plant the field, you may not know when you're going to get rain or when you're going to get sun or when you're going to get all the other things, but your hope is that the Lord blesses the work of your hand. He's going to talk about this in a moment. And he's keeping a very consistent message with this. In the morning, sow your seed, and in the evening, withhold not your hand. What's he talking about? Work. And work at it. Now, he could be simply talking about physical labor. I think he's talking more about spiritual behavior as well. Why? Because he's talking to young men. Our greatest work that we should be at is not obtaining for ourselves. That's important. But please understand, I got it. We got to pay the bills. But a lot of times that is our sole focus. Why? Well, because we hire the pastor to do all the stuff we don't want to do. Nope. Well, I don't go to the store anymore. Go to the store. Have conversations with the people at the store. Richie and I know two of the folks that serve the food there at the store, and we talk to them all the time. And I've invited them on numerous occasions. Hopefully one day they'll take me up on it. See, because they can't leave the skillet. They got to stand there and man it. So you start a conversation with them and you start inviting them to come to church. Maybe hopefully they'll do that. I went to the gun store the other day, and while I had the guys there, because they couldn't leave the counter, and they're not going to say no to Mr. Payne, because Jimmy went in with me, and when I walked in, everybody in the room stopped and went, Mr. Payne! Might have been in there a lot. They're not going to walk away because Mr. Payne purchases things there. So Mr. Payne has a moment to talk with them and ask them. They said no. But Mr. Payne in a couple of weeks is going to ask him again. Why? Because Stephanie said no. A lot. But I was her stalker. And I just wore her down. And now we have two beautiful girls. And she has the life of her dream. Anyhow, a word from our sponsor. You do not know which will prosper, this or that, whether both will be alike. See, you will do all this stuff. You'll invest all these things. And here's the thing is, the purpose of doing it is because you do not know the outcomes, but you are guaranteed a guaranteed outcome if you do nothing. The outcome of doing nothing is nothing. And nothing is easy to do. You want this church to grow? Quit doing nothing. And I'm looking at all of you. You can't hire me to do all the evangelism. I'm going to tell you why. There's one of me. Looks like about 60 people in this room. If every one of you brought someone next week, how many people do we have? There you go, pal. Look at that. Mathematics works every time it's tried. Well, I'm too old. I'm retired. I work all the time. You work with people. And many of them are godless. You encounter people, and many of them are godless. How do I know? Because we live in a secular nation now. I posted on my Facebook wall today, Frank Turek posted about the death penalty being biblical, and you read the comments, and you would see the just absolute, the Bible doesn't say anything about the death penalty. Just chapter 9, verse 6. All day long like Donkey Kong. Genesis chapter 9, verse 6. Well, that's part of the Mosaic law. Can't be. Moses didn't get born until Exodus chapter 1. Genesis chapter 9, verse 6 predates Abraham. It can't be the Mosaic law. It's too far apart. It's called logic. It works every time it's tried. We want the church to grow. The church is not going to simply grow because I put signs outside. That'll help. That'll let people know we're here. But if you're sitting on the pew and you've said nothing to anybody about coming to church or tell them about knowing your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, then guess what? You're guaranteeing the church will not happen. Won't grow. See, that goes into the investment thing. Now, granted, he's talking about agricultural means, but he's also talking about spiritual behavior and godly behavior. How do I know? Because he's going to talk about it here in a moment. Life is sweet and it's pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in all of them. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. And all of it comes to vanity. Well, what does that mean? He's going to explain a little bit more here in a moment. Okay. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and go on down to the next and make some more. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth. Let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that all these things God will bring you unto judgment. So he's simply not talking about daily activity. He is. But he's also talking about godly. How do we know? We'll talk about that here in a moment. Remove the vexation from your heart. this is where the ESV really picks a difficult word just to be difficult. From your heart, put away the pain from your body, ibuprofen, for your youth and the dawn of your life are vanity. You could title this section, and the section before, YOLO with Consequences. You only live once. How many of you ever heard that, right? You only live once, and that becomes the mantra for a lot of young people because, well, I only live once. Therefore, I'm going to live all of my life while I'm young. This is where you get the category dinks, dual income, no kids. We're going to travel all the world, and then when we get old enough, we'll have kids. Here's the problem as a dad that's older. There are things you can do as a young dad that I can't do as an older dad. One of them is bend at the knees. The other one is run any distance long term to grab a kid that's running from you. So what happens is we have this mindset of, well, we only live once, so let's go and do it. And you read this, and it kind of makes it sound like, do everything that your heart desires and do everything. And the problem with that is, the word heart here in the text is not talking about the emotive side of man. It's talking about the complete man, the cognitive, rational, and the emotive man. Rejoice, young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. Now, one translation, this comes to us out of what we call Codex Sinaiticus that has their Septuagint attached to it. It says, walk in the ways of your heart blameless, and not in the sight of your own eyes. We know that that's kind of a textual commentary. When they're doing that, they're trying to explain how to render this text because it sounds like it's an Epicurean text. Live your life however you want. Problem with that is you have this phrase that indicates judgment, which is why Codex Sinaiticus renders it the one way. Renders it this way. I'll read it one more time for you so you have it. Walk in the ways of your heart blameless and not in the sight of your eyes. Why is that? But know. This is a key phrase. I want you to hear it. Underline it in your text. But know. For all these things, God will bring you unto judgment. Now that goes all the way back to your investment strategy and your kingdom investment strategy and your behavior upon the earth and your behavior within the church. You live your life however you want. You can do YOLO till your eyes bleed. But understand, every single action that you do is going to come before a holy God for judgment. Translation. That's why the Vaticanus in this one reads it this way. Walk in the ways of your heart blameless. Experience the things upon the earth. Just don't experience them in the excess. Be about making business and earning wages. Just don't be about that as the sole means of the existence of life. Not in the sight of your own eyes or in your eyes. It's good to date women. It's good to marry women. It's good not to marry more than one. Why? Just a lot of headaches there, fellas. You are never going to be right. I want you to think about David and Solomon. Can you imagine if Solomon missed trash day? Can you imagine if Solomon was going on a trip and didn't have directions? Ladies, you know I'm right. You know I'm right. When you get married, fellas, you get a little helper that gets in the car. They tell you that the light is red because you can't see it. Notice what it says. But know, all these things God will bring you unto judgment. See, we read the other passages, but we don't read that. And what we do is we tell ourselves that God isn't going to punish me for the stuff I don't do. Well, I help you out. Yeah, He is. And you're going to account. So let's pull this over into a Christian context in our day and age. It's not my job to do evangelism. Matthew 28, He's not talking to me. He's talking to we. You go, it's not that big a deal. Know this for all things. He didn't say some things, little things, big things. All of these things, God will bring you unto judgment. Do you hear that? Does that make a difference now? It should. It should. But for many of us, what we do is we hear it and we go, yeah, I know it's there, but. Then we get into the last little part that sounds like a prescription for ibuprofen. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body. Ibuprofen, right? You go to the doc in the army and said, my arm hurts. After he says, well, don't move your arm like that. He'll go, I got it. Ibuprofen and drink water. There you go. Well, doc, I think my arm's broken. Yeah, just take the ibuprofen. It'll heal. For your youth and the dawn of your life are vanity. Okay. The Net Bible puts it this way. Banish emotional stress from your mind and put away pain from your body. For youth and the prime of life are fleeting. If you haven't been following me on Facebook, you really should. It's a hoot. I have a new thing that I've been doing lately called I'm Offended. And all the things that I'm offended at are first world problem offenses. And you have to understand, a lot of our problems that we get really, really angry about in America are no issues at all in the second and third world. And our offense at them only indicates our entitlement. I'm offended that Starbucks did pumpkin spice. When are they going to do bacon spice? Right? Think about that. Bacon spice coffee? And be all over that like a fat kid in dodgeball. Or as a fat kid on an apple pie. One of those. Who cares? Go, I don't think it's right to say it. I'm a fat kid. I can get away with saying that. A lot of our problems that we have today, and a lot of the emotional stress, and you'll see this today, you now have a generation, my daughter's generation, and the ones a little bit older, have higher degrees of mental illness and mental depression than any other generation. And part of that has to do with the fact that we have dumped upon them the terror of first world problems. We have given them the Malthusian, I think it's Malthusian, that the world is we're running out of space upon the world. That's been debunked years ago. We are not running out of space, and we are not running out of food. The problem is a lot of it has to do with economic and global and green deals that we won't get into because it's a little more political, that are causing those problems. But we are not running out of food. The world is going to end. Al Gore claimed it'd be over by now. If you go back and watch Star Trek, the cool thing is it mentions dates like in the 1990s, they had this, and they're going, nope. Go back and watch Leonard Nimoy. Go to YouTube and type in Leonard Nimoy planet freezing. And you'll see that all the arguments that Leonard Nimoy uses about us going into the next ice age are now the ones they're using for us about ready to burn up. Same arguments. Totally different outcomes. When that happens, you usually call those people, there we go. But we have put that stress upon kids where they go, I don't want to bring my child into a world where they could die. Welcome to the world, because everybody dies. And so what we do is we have trained a whole generation and impressed upon them and they now are suffering at greater extents of mental illness than others because, one, we have dumped a lot of first world stressors upon them that don't exist. And we have created this problem. And part of the reason we created this problem is because we have taught them a godless theology. The NLT more properly gives it young people, starting at verse 9. It's wonderful to be young. Enjoy every minute of it. Do everything you want to do, take it all in, but remember that you must give account to God for everything you do. So refuse to worry and keep your body healthy. Remember that youth, with a whole life before you, is meaningless. I like how they phrase that. It's nice to have a young life, but it's meaningless to have a young life that doesn't experience things. But it's also dangerous for you to experience too many things, especially things that are wicked and evil to do. And so the balance that is within the text is enjoy life. But understand that there is a requirement from a holy God. Pull this over to the church. It's a great thing to enjoy church. Church is meant for us to be, as a family, to be a place where we enjoy the fellowship of one another. The downside is when church becomes a country club. When church becomes a members only. When church becomes more about the people in the walls than the people outside its walls. When we become light to ourselves and not light to people in darkness. See, all of us in this room, young, old, male, female. Wait, this sounds very eerie like Paul. Have an obligation. Let me hear that. Let you hear that again. Have the obligation to share the gospel with the people you encounter. And even in that, we account to a holy God. You can't escape that. Just like you can't escape wrong living, you'll account to a holy God. Squandered living, you'll account to a holy God. That's the power of the talents. If you're here today and you have lived a life where you have believed that the church's growth, your spiritual walk, the kingdom's growth, your family's growth, all belongs on the shoulders of one individual, I'm going to call you to repentance. You are the theologian to your household. Fathers, you're responsible for the direction of your family. Mothers, you're responsible for the upbringing of your children. Individual members upon the pew, you're responsible for sharing the gospel with everyone around you. Well, everyone I know is saved. Find new people. All of us in this room are responsible to a holy God for our behavior, and all of us in this room are responsible to take that message to a dying world. If you're here today and that fits you, I'm going to call you to repentance. If you're here today and you don't know who Christ is, I'd love to sit and talk to you about the love of a holy God who sends His Son to die upon the cross. We're about ready to enter into the Advent season. Advent is about the coming of the infant Christ, but looking forward to the return of the risen Lord. And so if you're here today and you fit those categories or any other category, we'd love to talk to you as the praise team leads us out.